Hey guys, Ed over here at FICM Repair. So you're a new 6.0 owner like this gentleman here, and you want to get some reliability and then you want to build some power. So where do you start? You know, there's three things that you just totally want to do, and a fourth thing that I'm like, yeah, you'll like yourself if you do it. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to realize that without monitoring, you're dead in the water. Uh, the factory gauges, if you've had your truck any time at all, you've probably noticed that the transmission fluid temperature, man, it's always dead set in the middle of perfect. 0 degrees outside, 100 degrees outside, towing, not towing. That's either the best heat exchanger known to man or it's lying to you. Which is it? Probably also knows your low pressure oil pressure gauge. It's always dead set in the middle, perfect. Idle, red line, whatever. Turns out that's a 7 psi switch. Interesting. On, off. Crazy. So having some monitoring is a very, very good way ahead. And so the Edge Insight CTS3 is by far our favorite for any number of reasons. It monitors 16 things concurrently. It beeps at you when bad things are happening. And you can even tack on what Edge calls their street diesel kit. If you do that, then you can go ahead. You can get a exhaust gas temperature probe in there. You can get their little digital to analog adapter that supports two additional analog devices. Conveniently, it comes with those devices, two 0 to 100 psi liquid pressure transducers. You can do one for fuel pressure and one for maybe low pressure oil, one for maybe coolant pressure, whatever you wanted to do there. So you could do that, and that way at least you get a benchmark for what's going on with this truck. Is your FICM healthy? Is your alternator putting out what it's supposed to put out? Is your trans temp, coolant temp, oil temp, are those numbers good? You're doing an oil cooler problem, right? Because without gauges, you just can't tell. Now, there are some things that we know are just native problems. So perhaps after you do the monitoring, maybe it makes sense to upgrade the alternator. Our favorite is this 240 amp alternator. It does 190 at idle, and 190 at idle, the idle number is what you care about. So there's companies out there that have 220 amp alternators only do 110 amps at idle, or 230 amp alternators only do 115 amps at idle. This is a 240 and it does 190. And if you were to take a really careful look right inside there, you can look at your alternator and say, hey, do I have gray or is it copper colored wires in the stator? The gray wires are square extruded, and they come out. It's called a hairpin wound stator. Don't you know? The wires come out. They do a hard 90. They do a hard 90 back. You end up with like 30% more copper in the stator. Way more energy efficient and way more output at idle, which is where it matters. And the reason why it matters so very much is the glow plugs can stay on for up to 2 minutes after ignition. And when they're running after ignition, you have a 230 amp draw against the charging system. And this is the reason why your batteries are only at like 12 volts for a period of time after the truck starts. And like magically it switches to 13, 5, and 14. And if you think that's hard on batteries, you're 100% right. That's hard on batteries. And it's also hard on the fuel injection control module. And if you need one of those, I know a guy, but wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to buy one? Wouldn't that be just so much better? So you get the bigger alternator and you move on. If you're a southern climate person, the 185 amp is fine. It's the biggest you can go without having to do anything in cabling land. But if you live in a northern climate, the 185 only does 130 amps at cold idle, which is way better than the 75 amps at cold idle from Ford. But it's still not where you want to be if you live in a tundra type climate. If you're in Jersey or PA or Connecticut or something, or especially North Dakota or whatever, anywhere in the Midwest, holy buckets, right? Don't spend your money that way. Get this 240 amp and move on. The bummer is you need cabling to support that. Ideally, on that cabling front, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about our deluxe wiring kit. So instead of having just the Ford 8-gauge wire hanging off the back, which is 16,507 circular mils, don't you know, we're going to add a 1-aught cable on the back of that, which is 105,000 circular mils, fuse protected. There's a little fuse block in the fuse, so an A&L style fuse block what the car stereo guys use, and that way if you do something silly and you blow the fuse, you can pick up one readily at any local stereo shop. You're not down waiting on Amazon or us to get you a replacement. But a fuse protected positive and then a negative of the exact same size to go with it. And if you wanted to stop there, I guess that's just our standard cable kit. But if you wanted to solve two unrelated problems, you totally could. Unrelated problem number one is that your batteries aren't very well load balanced. So you've got a 1350 amp or so inrush current to get the starter to begin spinning. But you've got a 2-aught cable, 111,000 circular mils, don't you know, that hooks up to the passenger side battery. And so Where do most of those electrons come from, that 1350 amp inrush current? It comes from the passenger side battery because that's what's hardwired. Now, there is an interconnect cable, but that's only 2 gauge, which is like 66,000 circular mils. And so our cable kit includes a cable that you run over the top of it. It's 4/0, it's 211,000 circular mils. So you end up with a little more than 4 times the copper between the batteries, which is a huge win. But recognize that electrons travel from the negative to the positive, not from the positive to the negative. And so as a result of that, what happens is, without adding another ground, that bigger cable is not going to do very much for you. So you want to add a 1/0 cable, a little shorty cable, from the driver cylinder head to the driver frame. And yes, on the front of the head, just above the fuel lines, there's already a hole drilled and tapped, and nobody's in there. And you can go ahead and you can add a lug there, and off to the races you go. Now, ideally, when you connect those battery cables, you'd use a product like this. This is our fave. It's called No-Ox ID. This is a reason to know that God loves you and wants you to be happy. This is an electrically conductive grease. You never want to use this on a pin connection, but you totally want to use it on your battery terminals. You totally want to use it when where your cable hits your ground. And what it does is it helps to span the gap, the little microscopic distances between your lug and your frame. A little 2-ounce jar will last you for probably 3 of these trucks. A little bit goes a long way. So you can take off the ground lugs that you see, and you can run a Dremel or some motor tool wire brush over the threads to clean that up. Chase a tap down there, clean the threads. Take a very thin layer of this stuff. It doesn't take much on the threads, on the lugs, on the frame. Put it all together again, and you will have a better connection. Now, if you live in a southern climate, don't worry about this because you're probably fine. But if you live in a northern climate where there's salt on the roads, calcium chloride, whatever, then you probably want to look behind the starter on the passenger side, frame to body. There's an 8-gauge ground strap, but it's exposed woven copper. That thing is probably gone. And so when that thing fails, it can take out FICMs, interestingly enough. So crazy. And we don't want that for you. So you can think about this ground cable, little 7-inch cable. Ford's was an 8-gauge, ours is a 4-gauge, so it's beefier wire. But really the issue is not so much that it's beefier, although that's helpful. The issue is that it's fully insulated along its entire length, and as a result of it being fully insulated along its entire length, it's not going to be so susceptible to corrosion from the salt and stuff like that. So we got some monitoring, we got an alternator, we got some cabling, we fixed our ground. Good job out of us. What's next? This is what's next. If you have an automatic, if you have a manual, you don't care. You can stop watching. But if you have an automatic, recognize your transmission just does not upshift through third gear. It shifts 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. It's murder on the clutch pack that handles that shift. So if you want to, you can go ahead and you can get this kit or portions of this kit. You can go to the 5R110 full upgrade kit page, just do a search on the top of FICM Repair, and you'll see all of the options. But you can double your line pressure, you can quadruple your flow, you'll get extra holding power out of the transmission this way. So how cool is that before slipping occurs? Slipping is the #1 reason why I sell people transmissions. I don't want to have to sell you a transmission, so you do this, you get some extra holding, and then life is really quite good for you. While you're there, you can choose to either get an OE upgrade, an OE pan upgrade. That little dude. Let me do it from this side. Yeah, this little dude right here. $75 buys you a 6.4 style pan because the Power Stroke 6.4 guys, they have the exact same tranny pan, the exact same trans that we have in our 6.0s, but they have a different pan, and that pan supports a finer filter that's way physically larger, right? And so it's a 15 micron instead of a 149 micron filter. Well, that's a freaking win. But you can read the product page on that and get some more longevity out of your trans, and then life is good. And now that you've done all the basics, now you can go ahead and think about having some fun. So what you can do is you can get a FICM tuner. It's the best dollars you'll spend. The net cost of getting a FICM tune this way is $200. We're gonna charge you $650 out of the gate in today's dollars, and then we'll give you $450 back when you send the tuner back to us, so your net price is $200. But this allows you to tune your fuel injection control module. It'll make the thing run a whole lot more like a gasser and a whole lot less like a diesel off the line. You will love your truck. We've sold so many of these. We've had one person want their money back. It's astoundingly good. You will like your truck. And after you do this, if you still want more, then we can pick you up. We can hook you up with like an SCT tuner and actually get some ECM tuning. But if you're not studded yet, be careful here. You don't want to go above like a 50 horsepower tow tune unless you want to have to do head gaskets. Watch my other videos on that. We also, if you wanted, could hook you up with some gearhead custom tunes. They are absolutely amazing, and they work beautifully in conjunction with the FICM tunes. Just again, don't be exceeding 50 horsepower unless you're studded. So I hope this helps. And then if you want more than this and you want to go to the 600 horsepower number like you were originally asking, drop us a line or give us a call, and maybe we'll just shoot another video that talks about specifically how to get the horsepower mods after you're there. FICMRepair.com, we're all in this